Discover the incredible story of a Soviet pilot who, after being shot down in World War II, crawled for 18 days to survive, lost his legs, and still flew again. A journey of courage and resilience that you need to know now. On May 20th, 1916, in the quiet town of Kamyshin, situated on the banks of the mighty Volga River in Russia, Alexei Petrovich Maresyev was born. Since he was a child, Alexei was fascinated by airplanes. He spent hours watching the sky, imagining what it would be like to fly above the clouds and see the world from a perspective few could experience. His father, a World War I veteran, understood his son's passion, and despite the family's financial difficulties, encouraged Alexei's dream. At the age of 18, at a time when aviation was beginning to gain popularity, Alexei made a decision that would change his life forever, joining the Soviet Army and later aviation school. At the Military Aviation Academy of the Soviet Union, Alexei distinguished himself not only with his technical skills, but also with his unwavering courage. He wasn't just a promising pilot. He was a young man with an indomitable spirit, determined to make a difference. In 1939, World War II broke out, and Europe was plunged into devastating conflict. In 1941, the Soviet Union was invaded by Nazi Germany, and Alexei, now a trained fighter pilot, was called upon to defend his homeland. The war was brutal, and the life of a fighter pilot was full of danger. However, Alexei was ready to face any challenge, piloting his Yakovlev Yak-1 with skill and determination. In April 1942, during a reconnaissance mission in the Novgorod region, Alexei's plane was hit by enemy anti-aircraft fire. Within seconds, his engine began to fail, and he knew he needed to abandon the aircraft before it was too late. Skydiving was a quick but essential decision. Landing in a dense, snow-covered forest was a stroke of luck, but luck was about to be tested to the maximum. Upon hitting the ground, Alexei realized the severity of his injuries. His legs were badly fractured, and every movement was agony. He was alone, without supplies, and surrounded by enemy territory. Survival seemed like an impossible task, but Alexei was not someone who gave up easily. With impressive willpower, he began to crawl through the snow, determined to find a way back to the Soviet lines. Alexei's fight for survival was a constant battle against pain, hunger, and cold. Each day he moved slowly, using whatever resources were available to stay alive. The forest was unforgiving, and the deep snow made every move a Herculean task. However, Alexei used his knowledge of nature to find sources of drinking water and small animals for food. Every root and wild fruit was a victory, proof that he still had the strength to continue. Alexei Maresyev's journey through the forest was one of the most incredible displays of resilience and willpower ever recorded. Every day in the forest was a new fight for survival. Without the ability to walk, he painfully dragged himself through the snow using only the strength of his arms. The terrain was treacherous, with thick snow and dense vegetation making every meter an immense challenge. To make matters worse, Alexei faced extreme temperatures that could easily lead to hypothermia. During the night, temperatures dropped drastically, and he needed to find ways to stay warm. He used any material available to protect himself from the cold, from leaves and branches to parts of his torn clothing. Each night, he fought not to succumb to the cold, knowing that falling asleep could mean death. Hunger was another constant enemy. With little food available, Alexei had to turn to nature for food. He hunted small animals and foraged for roots and wild fruits. Each mouthful was a victory, proof of his determination to continue living. Water was also scarce, and he drank from melted snow, even though he knew the risk of infection. For 18 long days, Alexei crawled through the forest, powered only by his unwavering determination. Each day brought new challenges, and each night was a struggle against the extreme cold. He improvised shelters with branches and leaves, trying to protect himself from the freezing temperatures that could easily end his life. The pain in his legs was constant, but he refused to give in to despair. During these 18 days of ordeal, Alexei reflected on his life and his choices. He thought about his family, his friends, and his combat colleagues. These reflections helped him keep hope alive, to remember what he was fighting to get back. He knew that giving up was not an option, and every positive thought renewed his determination to continue. On the 18th day, exhausted and on the verge of collapse, Alexei was found by local residents of the village of Plavny. These brave villagers, even under German occupation, risked their lives to help the injured pilot. They cared for Alexei, offering food, shelter, and treatment for his injuries. This demonstration of humanity in the midst of war was crucial to Alexei's survival, allowing him to regain strength until he could be safely transported to a Soviet hospital. When Alexei was finally found by the villagers of Plavny, he was on the verge of collapse. His condition was critical, but he still maintained the will to live. The villagers, moved by compassion and courage, took care of him with what they had. They knew that helping a Soviet pilot could put them in danger, but they still decided to do what was right. Villagers offered food and water, treated his wounds, and provided safe shelter. This act of kindness was a crucial turning point in Alexei's journey. With their help, he began to regain his strength, and the hope of returning home became more real. Eventually, he was transported to a Soviet hospital where he received the medical care he so desperately needed. At the hospital, doctors did their best to save Alexei's legs, but gangrene resulting from his severe injuries and prolonged time without proper treatment made this impossible. To save his life, doctors were forced to amputate both legs below the knees. The news was devastating for Alexei. As a fighter pilot, he depended on his legs to operate the plane's pedals and maintain control during flight. Without them, it seemed like his dream of flying was lost forever. However, Marysiev's determination did not allow him to give up. He decided that even without his legs, he would fly again. He began an exhaustive rehabilitation routine, learning to walk with prosthetics and strengthening the rest of his body. His recovery was remarkably quick, driven by an iron will and an unwavering spirit. In less than a year after the amputation, Alexei was determined to return to the cockpit. Marysiev insisted on being re-evaluated for active service. Superiors were skeptical, but allowed him to undergo a series of rigorous tests to prove his ability to fly. To everyone's surprise, he passed all the tests with flying colors. In 1943, he returned to active service as a fighter pilot, an extraordinary achievement that made him a symbol of resilience and courage for the entire Soviet Union. Returning to combat, Marysiev participated in numerous missions, shooting down enemy planes and continuing to contribute significantly to the Soviet war effort. His return to heaven not only boosted the morale of his colleagues, but also inspired the nation with his story of resilience. He became a living example that, with determination and willpower, it's possible to overcome even the most insurmountable obstacles. Alexei Marysiev was awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union, the country's highest military honor, in recognition of his bravery and extraordinary determination. His story was widely publicized, and he became a national symbol of courage and resilience. After the war, Marysiev continued to serve in the Soviet military, eventually retiring as a colonel. After the war, Marciev dedicated himself to helping other war veterans and people with disabilities, sharing his story and working to improve conditions and opportunities for those, like him, who faced great physical challenges. His life inspired the famous novel The Fate of a Man by Boris Polvoy, which was later adapted into a film. He also wrote an autobiography in which he details his incredible journey of survival and recovery. Alexei Maresiev passed away on May 19, 2001, one day before his 85th birthday. His memory lives on through the stories and legacies he left behind. He's remembered not only as a war hero, but also as a symbol of the strength of the human spirit. Your determination in the face of extreme adversity is a testament that with will and perseverance, it is possible to overcome even the most insurmountable challenges. Alexei Maresiev's story teaches us valuable lessons about courage, resilience, and the importance of never giving up, no matter how difficult the situation. His life is an inspiration to us all, showing that the strength of the human spirit can overcome any obstacle. And you, what did you think of this whole journey? Say it here in the comments. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Here, you will discover more incredible and interesting real stories. To the next.